Hans Wormhat, I want to read this parable from Kafka and just talk about it a little bit because it's applicable to things like today, like the Easter ritual. And it's a parable of the leopards. So, leopards break into the temple and drink the sacrificial chalices dry. This occurs repeatedly, again and again. Finally, it can be reckoned upon beforehand and becomes part of the ceremony. And so I think the parables tried to be laid out just as quickly and simply as it can be without trying to make it overly dramatic in the way that it's presented. But obviously the leopards breaking into a temple, that's supposed to be a really extreme event. And I think that's obviously why the choice of leopard instead of, it's not like chickens. And also, just another thing is that this is clearly talking about spiritual things. It's not a parable about chickens breaking into your back door and eating some food in your house and you adopt the chicken. It's that's not what it's about. It's about a temple and you have this big scary beast break in, and so certainly that was probably very shocking to the people the first time it happened, but it keeps happening, and eventually they just adopt it into maybe they even make a special window for the leopard to come in and give it a name or any sort of thing, but they turn this destructive force, they just become numb to it really and just adopt it into the ceremony. And I think that it's a good parable or just short story that it gives you so many different things that you could think about. Imagine that that place existed. It's just they had their temple, and then this leopard thing comes about. A few generations from there, a lot of their deity stuff will probably have to do with leopards, and their whole culture can just change overnight because of this random happenstance, and it can totally change their thing overnight, but everybody will just adopt it because, well, that's just the new way that it is. And which is kind of a scary thing because you see that happen sometimes where it's like everybody just starts marching to the beat of a new drum, and it's like nobody sits around, or nobody stands up and says, hey, why are we doing this differently now? I've just kind of felt like that my whole life, just like I'm surrounded by this whirlwind of why do people do the things that they do, and why are things done the way that they are done, and it's almost like nobody has any good reason for it. They just, well, because because we've always been doing it. And I think that's obviously what this parable is getting at, is the idea of rituals that we have, that we just do it like that because that's how the circumstances are. The leopard just kept coming in, so that's why we do it. And just for, so sure, the like Easter stuff, you could say that, like, why do we do the eggs and the strange pagan rituals? Because that's just how it's always been. And to go back to this temple thing, imagine that somebody travels to this village and they start learning about their customs and culture. How weird it would be to find out, like, wait, and then part of your religion is you have these leopards come in through this gold window and they drink all your wine. And to an outsider it would seem ridiculous, but to the person in the village it's just how it's always been, for them at least. And I mean, we see that all the time. That's all. Think of in South America, they wear those crazy hats. Who knows like how that came about? It The circumstances that have resulted in the fashion statement for an entire country, The real reason for it could be very strange. It could just be something like, well, they a cargo shipment of that type of hat just like got left in that country and people just got a hold of them and it became the new craze or something. I have no idea. Obviously, I made that up, but just giving you an example. It's none of these traditions. Where do they come from? What does it even mean? And who knows? The story that they give you is probably just a bunch of BS. I mean, it makes me think of the all of Spain speaking with a lisp, and they say it just all goes back to one person who they had a lisp, and the entire country just adopted this and just ran with it. There weren't enough people around that said, I'm not gonna just speak with a lisp because this crazy king has a lisp. All of this stuff has just always fascinated me, and I think this parable by Kafka kind of gets at the root of it, that a lot of a lot of what people do is just nonsense and it doesn't come from anything. It's just a leopard jumping through the window and drinking the dregs. It's a corruption, really, a destructive. Most of what people do and most of the customs that people follow and most of it is just a destructive force that has become a part of the ritual, has just become a part of people's life because it's always been like that. And Jesus talked about this too, I believe. Matthew chapter 18, verse 3, when he told us to be born again. And said, Verily, I say unto you, except ye be converted and become as little children, ye shall not enter into the kingdom of heaven. All of these traditions of men, they're what children are taught. If we were brought up in a different place, our temple wouldn't have a bunch of ridiculous, corrupted ceremonies like the breaking in of the leopard if we grew up in a correct place, but we didn't. This place is Satan's right now, and that's why we have to become like children again, because we have to redo that whole learning process, because where we are right now is not correct. And I mean, we failed this. Basically, we failed Jeremiah chapter 10. Hear ye the word which the Lord speaketh unto you, O house of Israel. Thus saith the Lord, learn not the way of the heathen, and be not dismayed at the signs of heaven, for the heathen are dismayed at them. I think we're okay on the front of, at least I'm not personally dismayed at the signs in the heaven. I love seeing the signs that Jesus is coming back. But learning the ways of the heathen, we totally screwed up on that one. And yeah, it's just basically everything we do is pagan corporate ritual and not really based on the Bible. I mean, why do Christians wear crosses? Where in the Bible did Jesus tell you to wear a cross on your neck? I don't get it. Just things like that have always rubbed me the wrong way. And it's because it's this idea. Why are you doing these traditions of men that have no real foundation? When people put on their gold cross and they feel like they're being a good Christian because they're wearing a piece of jewelry, that person they're doing a leopard ritual. They're following a ritual that they believe is bringing them to God. But do you think God appreciates the fact that you think putting on a piece of jewelry is meaningful? I don't. Anyways, for the customs of the people are vain. For one cutteth a tree out of the forest, the work of the hands of the workmen with the axe. They deck it with silver and with gold. Okay, clearly talking about Christmas. We weren't supposed to learn this stuff, and we screwed up on that. And I think that's what a big part of why we need to become like children again. Forget all of the traditions, and we're going to have to learn totally new traditions that actually have meaning. Hope you enjoyed the video. God bless everyone.